this morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Demo Day Wednesday using Nexus AI in FE Analytics and FE CashCalc. This is a really exciting webinar because we're basically introducing a brand new application, a brand new AI application called Nexus AI to the masses, and obviously what it is, what it does, but also how it integrates to our existing technology, notably FE Analytics and FE CashCalc. So I'm David Scholes, I'm Director of Wealth Sales. I'll be walking you through the webinar today. As all of our webinars, if you've been on them before, you'll know that you can ask as many questions as you like. So on your GoToWebinar dialog box on your side, there should be a little question tab somewhere on your screen. Just feel free to click on that anytime during the demo. Ask as many questions as you like, and I've got colleagues waiting digitally in the wings, and they'll be answering those questions as they come through. Super. Right, let's just dive straight in. Before I start talking about Nexus AI, just want to take a step back for 1 minute and just probably best to explain what Nexus is first before we start talking about this AI layer over the top of it. So you may have heard us refer to Nexus or the Nexus ecosystem. Ultimately, when we talk about Nexus, we're talking about our ecosystem of advisor solutions that we offer financial advisors. So in front of you here, FE Analytics, FE CashCalc, FE Advisor Asset, and they all do very different things, because when we look out across the advisor industry, we see advisors doing lots of different things themselves, all different disciplines. You guys have got to master, you've got to master cash flow, you've got to do risk profiling, you've got to do platform due diligence, you've got to know about fund data and MPS data, etc., etc. I could go on. There's a very long list of things you guys have to master, and it's up to us, incumbent on the software provider, to try and provide this ecosystem of fully integrated solutions that do all of that for you, so you can log into one application that does all of these different disciplines. So that's why we have at the moment Analytics, CashCalc, Advisor Asset. We will add to this tech stack, but at the moment, in talking of disciplines, Analytics brings to the table fund and MPS data, the reporting and risk profiling. Obviously, CashCalc, as the name kind of suggests, is the master of cash flow, also has a client portal and has the financial planning calculators as well for stuff like CGT, IHT, pension carry forward calculations. And then most recently, we acquired Advisor Asset this time last year, and a completely different set of disciplines, platform due diligence and charge comparisons. And the ambition over the last year or two has been to try and integrate them as closely together as possible. So when you're in our ecosystem, you can move that data, the client data and the portfolio data, effortlessly across these divides and different corners of the ecosystem, but equally yourself as well. So when you log into Analytics, I shouldn't have to log out and log back into another area or side of the ecosystem. I should just be able to use single sign-on to almost port myself across to these different areas. So that's what Nexus is. Incredibly strong, firm foundation. Each one of these are basically the masters in their own fields. They're market leaders. So that's the foundation. But what is Nexus AI? Well, Nexus AI, as I've kind of referred to, is almost like a secondary overlay, and that the two ambitions for Nexus AI is to try and get our users to extract even more value out of those existing solutions you're using. But equally, within the world of AI, AI allows us to do a lot of things that we weren't able to do in pre-AI days. So there's loads of things on our development roadmap at the moment and currently within Nexus that we were unable to do a couple of years ago, that now it gives us the ability to deliver through this Nexus AI ecosystem. And ultimately, one of the grand ambitions here is, rather than one day having to log into these separate applications to go and create a line chart or go and create a cash flow, you shouldn't have to do that. You should go into your AI tool, Nexus AI, and simply command it to do something with your voice. I want a cash flow for X client. I want to know the valuation on B client, or I want a 5-year performance on my MPS A, B, and C, and it should deliver it in Nexus. So that's kind of the track we're on. But ultimately, what we'll prioritize in terms of development comes from what clients want to see. So I'll get onto that in a few moments. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview before we dive into Nexus AI, what Nexus is, that foundation, and what we're trying to do with Nexus AI. Now, dive into Nexus AI. This is what it looks like currently. So the Nexus AI is basically separated into 3 parts. You've got the middle part here, which is a bit like ChatGPT-esque, a prompt screen, so you can ask it questions. I'll come back to that in a minute. On the right-hand side, these are all of the meetings you'll have today listed out, and those are the ones being recorded. And then over on the left-hand side, these are all the historic meetings you've had, all recorded, and all the transcript is available to you through here as well. And I've got a fake meeting here that I'll just load up. This is between Sarah, the advisor, and Sherlock Holmes, a meeting that's just happened recently. And you'll notice any meeting you load up will have the transcript loaded up, so you can read the transcript of the meeting, but also a meeting recording. Obviously, this is a fake meeting between two kind of illusion, so it's not going to load up. But if you click on meeting recording for other meetings, you'll get the full recording of the meeting that you can watch over if need be. But you've got the prompt at the bottom here as well. So if I've just come off this meeting and I've come into Nexus, and I think actually clients told me they're going on holiday, can't remember when they said they were returning, I can just ask it that question. I don't need to read through the entire transcript. I could just say, when's the client returning from holiday, and just remind me where they're going, and it will tell me. Or equally, I've just come off the meeting and clients just told me she's got a pension. I get Standard Life and Scottish Widows muddled up all the time. Which one was it? Where does the client invest? And it will simply tell me. So there's loads of stuff I can do just on this one screen alone. But you'll see on the right-hand side, there are 3 options. There are meeting notes, live transcript, and a meeting notes summary. And if I click on any one of those, it kind of changes the format of the screen around. So now my prompt's on the right, and the 3 tabs are up here on the left. And meeting notes, as it suggests. So I can go on here and very quickly add in some notes. Again, I might have just come off this meeting. I've got a load of mental notes in my head, and I just want to quickly jot them down in here. Live transcript, as it suggests, it just has recorded the entire meeting for you. So Nexus AI will join every online meeting that you have via whatever application you're using. And it's, as I said, it's recording it and taking the live transcript for you. And you can see through the transcript, this particular meeting, the client and the advisor are talking about various different things. They're talking about the fact that they've got a £1.8 million property in Baker Street. There's a £500,000 emerald necklace somewhere in here. They've also got a violin. He's talking about selling some premium bonds and adding an extra £5,000 to it, and then investing in a Vanguard ISA. That's another 20,000. Talking about an AJ Bell ISA in here. And then underneath, talking about his aspirations for the future, the fact that the client wants to retire in 10 years' time, and he's interested in buying a new Aston Martin for his mate Watson for his birthday. So obviously I don't need to read all of this every single time. This is quite a short meeting, but most meetings are going to be significantly longer. So that's why you've got meeting notes summary. So every single meeting, once you've left the meeting and logged yourself into Nexus AI, as a default, you've got a nice meeting notes summary that will explain the date and time of the meeting, the participants, if it was a real meeting, not this fake one, and then a summary of that meeting. It will look at the transcript and the recording and summarize the meeting as Nexus AI wants it laid out. Key points discussed. These are the key points discussed, the action items for that particular meeting, and the next steps at the very bottom. Now, you can copy and paste that very quickly just by clicking that button, and you might want to put that into your own environments. You might want to go into your back office system and pop it in there, etc. But you've also got the ability of spinning up that transcript into lots of different types of templates. We call these templates, and the default one is called meeting notes summary, which is kind of the obvious one. I want to take a transcript and summarize it, or I want AI to summarize that for me. There's loads of other templates you could use, and really the limit here is your imagination. Okay, well, now I've got this transcript for a meeting. What other templates could I potentially use? So if I click on Smart Actions on the right-hand side, I can click on Generate a Document from Template. I can say, look, take the live transcript and then spin that up into one of these templates. Now, when you first log into Nexus, there's going to be 3 default templates waiting for you. Memory serves, I think it's meeting notes, summary, I think you've got retirement planning and chronological meeting notes. But you can build as many as you like. And I said the limit's your imagination. I'm going to give you a bit of some hints and tips here on what you might want to think about building. If I just come away from here for a second, I'll come back to that in a second. Just going to come back up into my accounts tab up here. I'm going to go to templates. So all of the templates in the system are stored here. So this is my meeting notes summary. It's a default template, which means that at the end of every single meeting, that template is going to be used to spin up some content, a meeting notes summary of the meeting. If you wanted another one of your templates as a default, just hit the default button. You can obviously adjust it as well. So I can edit any one of these templates. And you can kind of get the logic here as to what Nexus is being asked to do. This template simply says, look, Nexus, after every single meeting, I want 3 headers, key points, discuss, action items, and next steps. And what do I want each heading to do? Well, I want the first one to summarize the most important points discussed in bullet points, yada, 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 list action items, and then finally outline what happens next and follow up meeting notes, deadlines. So that's the same with every template. You're just simply telling the system, this is how I want the template to be formatted, and it will simply do exactly as you request. So to give you some examples of some other things you might want to do, what about vulnerability assessment? At the end of every single meeting, as per the FCA guidelines and consumer duty, I'm supposed to be doing vulnerability assessments on clients. Well, AI can do that now for me. So I've actually cheated a bit, and well, anyone can do this. Go onto Gemini or ChatGPT and tell it exactly that. I'm using a meeting note system that templates all my transcripts of my meetings, give me, based on consumer duty and the FCA guidelines, give me some formatting rules around how a meeting can be spun up into a template that then illustrates the vulnerability assessment for a client. That's it. And it's given me word for word this, and I've copied and pasted it in. Client name, date of meeting, client background, health-related vulnerabilities, ask various different questions, reliance-related vulnerabilities, etc. And then finally, I've added at the very, very end, overall conclusion, give me a scale of 1 to 5. How vulnerable do you think this client is based on that particular meeting? So there's one example. Another example would be knowledge and experience capacity for loss. Obviously, again, as per the FCA guidelines, you're welcome to use a questionnaire, but really the whole purpose of risk profiling should be a free-flowing conversation with the client. So if you're going to have that conversation with the client and talk about knowledge and experience capacity for loss, why not do it with Nexus sitting on your shoulder, listening in on that meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, spin that up into a knowledge and experience capacity for loss document, and again, add that in there. And the last one we'll look at is a default email. Maybe at the end of every single meeting, I'm going to email the client a summary of that meeting. Now, I could theoretically use that summary that I already have, copy and paste that across, but actually for an email, I want it to be a bit more personal. I want to say, hi, client first name, thank you for meeting with me. Here's a quick summary of the meeting and next steps agreed. And then at the very end, summary of the meeting, next steps, and at the very end of that email, thanks again for your time, and we'll speak soon. So there's a couple of examples, but again, limits your imagination. You can spin this up into lots of different templates. But now if I take a step back, let's go back to my client, load this back up again, come to meeting notes. Let's spin this up now. So on the right hand side, smart actions, click on generate document for a template. Again, I'm going to take the live transcript and let's run a vulnerability assessment on this client. So I'm going to just select vulnerability assessment and generate output. I've made that request to the system. It's now having a thinking about it. It's now going to take my template. It's going to take my transcript, smash the two together, and it will create a vulnerability assessment within a matter of seconds. It's creating that on the right-hand side, and every single template that gets created is just simply added up here at the top. There we go. So I've got client vulnerability assessment, what the client name is, date of meeting. Again, this is a fake meeting, so ignore the fact that some of this would be missing. But client background, any health-related vulnerabilities. Has the client mentioned any physical or mental health conditions? No physical or mental health condition were mentioned. Resilient-related vulnerabilities, et cetera, communication accessibility needs, and then client's understanding and consent. And then finally, as I said, it gives an overall conclusion, 2 out of 5 vulnerability, and an explanation as to why it gave that vulnerability assessment, of which, of course, you could disagree with and change it. It's entirely up to you. But again, that could be my default. So rather than having a meeting note summary automatically populate, a vulnerability assessment will automatically create off the back of every single meeting I'm having with a client. And once again, same as before, I can click on that little copy icon and copy and paste that to my own environment outside of Nexus AI, or just simply have it stored in Nexus AI. A couple of others, let's use the email one as well. So show smart actions, generate another template. Let's take the transcript and let's whack that into a default email template that we spoke about a second ago, generate output, and it's going to do exactly the same. And this is going to give me an email template that I can now quickly send across to the client. So I've only just got off that meeting with the client. The meeting's ended. I've gone into Nexus AI within literally 3 seconds. I've got now a nice little summary that I can email the client that's formatted correctly for an email, and I can just copy that button and something I did earlier. There we go. There's an email ready and waiting to go to Sherlock Holmes at hotmail.com, meeting overview. Just whack it in there. Hi, Sherlock. Thank you for meeting with me. Here's a quick summary. Thanks again for your time. We'll speak soon. And click on send. Within literally a minute of ending that meeting, I've got a nice little email summary ready to go to the client in terms of what was discussed. So that's some of the meeting templates. Let's just move on. On the bottom down here, you've got other smart actions as well. So as I mentioned at the very start of this webinar, it integrates and tethers itself to your analytics account and CashCalc account if you use those systems. And obviously we'll be building this out over the coming weeks and months. So in terms of version 1, what kind of things can you draw into Nexus or out of Nexus AI? Well, you can do portfolio scans. So rather than, if I want to create a portfolio scan, clients just mentioned he's got a Vanguard ISA. Maybe that Vanguard ISA is sitting in my analytics account. And if I wanted to create a medium scan, I shouldn't have to log out of this secondary layer and go down into the primary layer into analytics and press 3, 4, 5 buttons to get a report for that portfolio. I should just be able to do it within Nexus. So I can click on Nexus, I can create a medium scan or short scan. I'll click on medium scan. It will load up all of the portfolios sitting in my analytics account. I've got one called Sherlock Holmes, Vanguard ISA. There it is. And I can click on go, and it just simply makes a request down into that primary layer again, goes into analytics, goes and basically clicks all the buttons for you, and then serves up the content. And as I said at the very start of that webinar, this is kind of the grand ambition of what we want Nexus AI to gradually become. Can I surface all of this content directly into Nexus AI rather than always having to go into that primary layer? And there's Sherlock Holmes Vanguard ISA. That's what the portfolio has done overall. There's the 5 Vanguard funds he invests in. There's the asset allocation, and there's some nice little chart showing us the performance of that Vanguard ISA versus a benchmark and the performance of the underlying holdings as well. Equally, under Smart Actions, let's just scroll down. You've also got a download document as well. It's pretty simple. So there's a load of stuff I'm creating here that I might want to spin up into a Word document or PDF. That vulnerability assessment's a good example of that. So at the moment, that vulnerability assessment just sits in text format in Nexus. Well, you know what? I'd actually quite like that in a PDF format, and I'd like to attach that into my notes section on my CRM, for example. I may attach that to an email and send it across to someone. So again, I can just simply click on PDF, vulnerability assessment, and download, and it will download a PDF of that particular template I've created. That's pretty self-explanatory. Under Smart Actions, I can also lastly push to CRM, which basically means CashCalc. So for this particular client, let's do that now. If I want to push this data to the CRM, I've got a CashCalc account loaded up. There is no Sherlock Holmes in that account yet. So what it's going to do, it's going to look into my CashCalc account and say, okay, is there a Sherlock Holmes client in CashCalc? No, there's not. So now it's asking me, what do you want to do? Do you want to create a new client record for Sherlock Holmes? Do you want me to attach this to a slightly different client, et cetera, et cetera? Well, I want you to attach it to, I don't want to attach it. I want to create a brand new client, Sherlock Holmes. And now it's going to have another think about it. I'm happy to create that record for Sherlock Holmes. Create his client record in the CRM, or in this case, CashCalc. What is Sherlock Holmes' date of birth? I don't know the fictional character's date of birth, but let's just use, let's make him a little younger, 1975. I can click on add, and that's all it needs. Ultimately, to create, as many of you know that uses CashCalc, to create a client record on CashCalc, all you need is a date of birth and a name. So it's just gone and done that within, again, a matter of seconds. It's now built Sherlock Holmes directly into CashCalc. Now, what it's doing is it's looking through the transcript of the meeting, albeit it was only a couple of minutes, could be an hour long, and it's trying to find all those bits of information that sit naturally in your CashCalc or stroke CRM system. So that's going to be the stuff that was talking about the investments. He was talking about his house. He was talking about his objectives in life. So it's going to rip all of that information and data out of the transcript, and it's now going to reconcile that against CashCalc and allow you to push that data directly to CashCalc. Bear with it. There we go. So it's found quite a few. It's found quite a few items here. So let's just go through these. It's found an emerald necklace that he was talking about in the transcript. He said it was 500,000. It was called emerald necklace. So yeah, we want to push that across. It's going to be defaulted to push across. Obviously, if you don't want to push it across, you can simply disable it. Didn't speak about a particular growth rate, so I can pop that in there. And obviously in CashCalc, there's a few other fields like policy number, start date, plan provider, so I can add those in on the fly if I want to. He spoke about an antique violin. So again, that was 50,000. It's picked that out for me. Also spoke about his home in Baker Street, the 1.8 million. Again, I'm just going to whack in a 4% growth rate on that. Let's do 4%. Also spoke about a couple of investments. He's got his Vanguard ISA, 45,000. He did mention in the transcript that it was growing at 7%. So it's taken that field out and popped it in there. And then the AJ Bell stocks and shares ISA. Let's just, he didn't mention a growth rate for that. So we'll just say, maybe it's actually, you know what, it's a balanced solution. Let's just say it's 5%. And then finally, his objectives, as we mentioned on the transcript, he wanted to retire in 10 years. And he also had a objective of buying an Aston Martin for Watson's birthday. So I can confirm and push items to CRM. It usually takes that long. There we go. In a matter of seconds now, CashCalc has been updated. Again, without touching CashCalc, it's now essentially going into CashCalc for me and updating it rather than me having to go in there and use my fingers to update stuff. So let's have a look at what that looks like. If I come back into CashCalc, I wanted to show you single sign-on. I'm already signed on to analytics. It has been sitting here untouched, so I hope I'm still logged in. But I can click on Portfolio Tools, and I want to go into a different area of the ecosystem. I don't need to log into CashCalc. I can just click a button, and using single sign-on, I can get over to the other side of our ecosystem. I can click on the Clients tab, and fingers crossed, there he is, Sherlock Holmes. He's been updated a few minutes ago. There's his date of birth. I can click on him, and when he loads up, as if by magic, 2.42 million net worth. Why is that? Well, if I come to the Info tab at the very top here, it's because his investments have been pulled across with Vanguard and AJ Bell with their growth rates. Also got the non-liquid assets, the jewelry, the instrument, the home, and obviously we've got some notes on objectives as well. The objective to retire in 10 years, and buy the car for Watson's birthday. Now, all of that data is sucked into CashCalc, because a lot of you will know CashCalc is fully integrated to most of the big CRMs out there, your Curos, your Xplans, your IOs. So I think in time, ideally, we'd want a direct integration between Nexus AI and directly to the CRM. It's not really too much of an issue. It's just one extra hop, that one hop into CashCalc, and then I just simply click the integration button there and push all of that data into my back office system. Using the existing integration architecture we already have. But as you can see, CashCalc can obviously collect a lot of data. That example there is just looking at investments, assets, and objectives. But clearly, if the client's spoken about expenses, if they've spoken about incomes, or they've spoken about pensions, it's exactly the same idea. It'll be pushed into Nexus. Now, the last thing I'll do in CashCalc very quickly is show you, once I've got that data, I'm only a couple of buttons away from a cash flow. I want to take the Vanguard ICE from the AJ Bell stocks and shares. I can call this my current situation. I don't want to pull across the non-liquid assets. I could do if I wanted to, but I don't really want to in this case. And if I click on export, give that a second or two, it will load up the cash flow tab at the top here. If I click on cash flow model, as if by magic, I've now got a cash flow image within a few seconds. I've gone from having a meeting with that client, talking about his assets, going into Nexus AI, where all that data is now living and breathing, pressing a button, pushing it into cash flow, and now generating cash flow off the back of it. And again, how can we make that even more efficient? Ideally, one day, just being able to go into Nexus and serve that image into Nexus rather than having to even go into the underlying application. Obviously, I can now play around with this as well. This isn't static. I can say, well, he's talking about buying what's in his car. So let's add an expense, one-off, buy car. Again, not very imaginative. I'm not a car man, so I'm not entirely sure how much an Aston Martin goes for these days. I suspect there's quite a lot of zeros to it, but let's just say 100,000 one-off, and he wants to buy when he's 65. Will those two pops cover that? Certainly probably not going to cover his retirement. They're not very big, but will it cover the cost of buying what's in his car? Yeah, good news, it will do. By the time he buys it at 65, obviously fall off the edge of a cliff. We still have some assets left, about 12,000, and that will continue growing. And obviously the growth rate is dependent on what we've added for Nexus. Now, if we wanted to change the growth rates are just simply here, 7 and 5. I can edit those and see what it looks like with different growth rates if need be. So let's come back into Nexus. A couple of last things just to quickly show you. Over on the right-hand side under the settings tab, we were there a few seconds ago, but let's just go back to it. And we covered off the template section, but there's a few other things just to be mindful of. When you first log into Nexus, you've got the account section here. So you've got a little onboarding journey. I won't bother showing you that now because I've essentially just shown you the onboarding journey. But if you click on that, it's a nice little walkthrough that shows you, to remind you again, what is Nexus and what are these different screens and what do they do. The integrations tab, clearly when you first log into Nexus AI, you want to tether it if you're using analytics, if you're using CashCalc. There will just, obviously I've already connected it, but there'll be a little connection button. Just click on connect and connect, and it's just going to tether it based on your email address. If there's an analytics account or a CashCalc account living out in our ecosystem that has your email address, it will just connect automatically. And the same with your calendars as well. If you're using Outlook or Google, just simply connect and it will connect and tether those together. So it will then be able to join these digital meetings of yours. The meeting tab as well, these are all flipped to on. There's a few things, for example, include video links and meeting notes. If once you've had a meeting, if you want it recorded, not just the transcript, but the actual recording of the meeting, just leave that on. Again, it's going to be defaulted to on anyway. If you don't want it automatically recorded, just flip it off. And again, you can manually do meeting by meeting. Auto join meetings is obviously quite useful if you've just missed a train or you're running late to a meeting or you're really sick and haven't been able to attend various meetings that have gone on ahead without you. Fear not, Nexus will join in your absence, and Nexus will take all the meetings and record it for you. So if you do want it to join automatically, which I would assume most people would, just have that left on. And auto generate meeting notes. The default template we were talking about earlier was my meeting summary. If you wanted that default to automatically run after every single meeting, again, just leave that on. And what do you want your note taker to be called? When the note taker enters, say, your Teams meeting, do you want it to be personalized to you? Do I want it to be called David Scholes Note Taker? In my case, I just want it called Nexus AI Note Taker for AFI. It's a bit of a mouthful. Might want to change that at some stage. Already covered off templates, the templates that you can use, and the appearance as well. I've always favoured kind of a light user interface, but you can, those of you on the darker side, can change it to dark as well. Very simple toggle back and forth. So that's what Nexus looks like today. Nexus AI, hopefully I've given you a good enough overview. As I said, the idea moving forward now, we've got loads of ideas in our head of what we want to do, what we want to build next. You know, in this new AI world, we talk about weeks and months rather than months and years. Development moves on at such is such a pace now. But really, it's just going to rely on feedback, as I said at the very start. So the more people that use Nexus AI, the more people that provide feedback and tell us exactly what you want, that stuff will be prioritized first. You know, where do we go with this? Do we go down the route of suitability reporting? We've got all of the data that you'd need in a suitability report in analytics and CashCalc and Advisor Asset and some of the other acquisitions that we're looking at now. Can we draw all of that data into Nexus AI and create suitability reports? Yes, we could, but do we go down that route, or do we go down other routes, compliant routes? Do we go down a compliant route that will create compliant documents based on all of the transcripts across all of the advisors in the firm? You know, again, the limit here is all of our imagination. What would you like to see us build? So on that note, anyone attending today's session, our team will be in contact with you over the coming hours and days to offer you trial access to Nexus AI, to play around with it, to link and tether it to your analytics and CashCalc systems. And just one last slide from me. And obviously after that trial, again, feel free to provide feedback to us so we can direct our development resources in the correct direction in terms of what our clients want from us. One final thing from me, hopefully you've enjoyed that. Hopefully you've given you a good enough overview and illustration of what our Nexus ecosystem is, what our ambitions are with that, but also what our ambitions are with Nexus AI as well. As I said, the team will be reaching out to you for a free trial. We do lots of webinars. As the name suggests today, we do a webinar every Wednesday, but we do lots of other webinars around that as well. So feel free to scan that QR code in the middle, sign up to our future webinars. I think we've got one next week for the MPS universe we released a few weeks ago, basically surfacing all of the MPS data now on analytics. And there's other webinars to follow on into November and December, going through the introductions into the basics of analytics and CashCalc and Advisor Asset, etc. And that last QR code on the right-hand side, me and my team are quite active on LinkedIn. We provide lots of hints and tips and announcements on big developments we've just launched. So feel free to scan that last QR code on the right-hand side and reach out to me. And if you've got any pressing questions, hopefully you've been asking questions throughout this session and my colleagues have been answering them, but any additional questions, feel free to use LinkedIn. You've obviously got a help desk. I would always suggest go to the help desk first. I can be a bit sluggish to respond to LinkedIn, as you can imagine, but again, feel free to reach out to me using that QR code on the right-hand side. Wonderful. Thank you again. Thank you very much for joining us on this Wednesday morning. Again, hopefully you found that useful and have a lovely rest of the day. Thanks for watching.